Now, think about the logic with that versus what you're trying to do probably right now, or what you've been doing probably for months, or failed at keeping a funded account, or never getting a funded account in your prop firm trading, or blowing live accounts, or going into severe drawdown. Because many times you're probably reaching for things that are so beyond the scope of your present skill set. And it doesn't matter how many years you've been trying to trade. You still have a very small capability because you haven't found consistency yet. The length of time doing it is not a direct correlation to how good you should be. Because you can waste a lot of time doing all the wrong things and lie to yourself saying, but I do study, but I do take notes, but because I do backtest. What you do with your time, how you condition yourself mentally while doing those things, that's going to have a direct result or impact on the outcome of what it is you're forming as a model. And if you don't put the work into identifying those things and being critical about the importance of them, you'll try to hold on to a trade. And I'm sure you probably have had this happen before. You're in a trade and you're looking for an objective that probably pays out over $1,000 or more. And if you're doing multiple contracts, you're doing the math on, this is going to be great. I'm going to have a $20,000 winning day, or this will put me to a point where I can ask for a 5-figure payout or get a withdrawal from the actual broker. And then you start feeling that, what if it doesn't get there? And what happens if it never really gets to my target? And now you're worried about never getting to your target versus sticking to the model that says you should hold it for your target. Isn't that funny how that works? You start thinking about the very thing that you don't want to see happen instead of saying, am I seeing everything that still indicates this is the likelihood that I started the trade on? The premise was it should trade to my target. Are you looking for signatures and validation behind that technical aspect that you entered on? Are those still being seen in that chart? Is price still indicating that those things are true? As long as that doesn't happen, or as long as that doesn't fail, or it no longer is in price action supporting your idea, you shouldn't be thinking about your trade failing. Because what you're doing is you're teaching yourself to have negative concern while the trade's underway. And you wonder why you're fearful. And you wonder why you're afraid of losing. Because you're constantly reflecting inside and maybe outwardly that, man, I know this is going to turn around. How many times have you said that? Oh, man, I better get out. But you're not getting out. Man, I know if I get out of this trade, I know it's going to do this or do that. The fact that you're even doing those things, you're not in control of yourself. You're not in control. You're not driving anymore. Your emotions are driving. And the first tree that you come to, that's what you're going to run into. That means you're going to impulsively do something. Or you're going to get reckless. And then what that does, it becomes a shift in your mindset where it becomes gambler's numbness. If you constantly talk to yourself out loud or internally, but worse outside of, with your tongue saying it, I know this is going to turn on me. I know this isn't going to hit my target. I know I should just get out right now. But you're saying, F it, I'm just going to hold on to it. But you're really killing yourself. Like you're beating yourself up, dragging yourself across the coals, telling yourself you're not going to get out. But inside you're wrestling, just get out. Just get out. But you think it's weakness if you get out. And you start this whole wrestling match with different perspectives, and you're arguing with multiple versions of yourself. And then when it gets so bad, you'll start saying it out loud, like you're talking to yourself as a separate person. The entire time, you're not watching price. You're just wrestling and arguing with yourself about staying with the trade or getting out of it. To avoid that for Caleb, and to avoid those things that were happening like that for me when I was younger, into my 20 years old initial soiree into trading, I had a lot of that stuff. Like I had full-blown conversations with myself. Why aren't you taking this trade's exit right here? Why aren't you doing that? Well, here's the reasons why. What are you doing? You're literally distracting yourself from the task at hand, which is stick to the model. Is the model still active? Is it still valid? That's what you're supposed to be focusing on. And you do positive self-talk. You remind yourself when the trade's panning out in your favor, these are the things that are going positive for the trade. You're not lying to yourself. If it's not there, you're not gonna say it, right? But it is something you constantly have to refer to. And then If it does turn around and stop you out, okay, that was a cost of business. It doesn't mean it's the end of your career. It doesn't mean your model's broken. It doesn't mean it doesn't have the ability to find another winning trade in the future. It doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that that transaction said, this is enough for right now. Come back another day or come back on another opportunity. That's all it means. It just means respawn on another setup. And there it is. It doesn't mean get right back in either. It doesn't mean go back in with more contracts. It just means that it was enough for right now. And you missed a better opportunity to exit, but you'll get better at doing that over time. That's how you should take a loss. That's how you should tell yourself, that's what I just experienced. And that's not a toxic thing. That's not a bad thing. But if you start this whole process with, okay, I'm trying to make money, but I'm realist. I'm a practical person. I know that my skill set, because I just started studying these things from ICT's YouTube channel, I don't have the real skill to implement the things that I see him doing and his other students, because I'm just starting. So how can I go about framing a very easy, low-hanging fruit objective so that way I don't have to work so hard? I don't have to build these unrealistic expectations about what I should be able to accomplish in my trades too soon. So that way I am always on this positive continuum of progress, and I always feel like I'm getting better and not stagnating or going backwards. Every day is an opportunity for you to improve upon yourself from where you were the day before. But you are making it impossible if you're not being real. If you're out there thinking you're going to get $1,000 per contract every single time you get into a trade, and you just recently started, your expectation is too high. And I mean that. Even if I was trading in front of you and told you what my entries were, and I was consistently delivering that, you would still mess it up because of your inability to trust what it is that you're doing. And you're going to feel this emotional stimuli rise up in you, and you'll start feeling afraid when you're making money. And then you'll be distracted, and you'll start going through this loop of, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? And you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing as a trader, which is following price action, following the model, indicating that is it valid still or is it not valid? That's trade management. But the reality is, everybody's course, everybody's book, everybody's live stream, everything that you get involved with is always about getting into a trade. That's what it's all about. The action of getting into a trade. Nobody has a deficiency in finding a reason to get into the market. Okay, everybody has a reason to get into it. You can just stump your toe and say, oh, well, last time I did that, I made money. And let me just go out here and just try to buy something today because I feel like I got to replace this bad feeling of pain. That's an instigation for you to go out and do it. So nobody needs any help in that area. But what I have noticed, and what I had to fortify in my own trading, reasons to justify why enough is enough. If you think that your trade should yield you $1,000, what's wrong with making $250? It's $250 you didn't have before. And in your early infancy as a trader that's developing, as an analyst, as a technician learning how to do these things and reprice, you don't know if that trade's going to yield to $1,000 for you. You don't know that. You don't know the things that are positive for that outcome to be expected. In the same token, you don't recognize or know what the things are going to be that say, no, it's not going to go there while you're in the trade. So in the beginning, it's real important for Caleb or anyone else that's brand new to say, okay, I need to have a very small, low threshold objective. Okay. I suggest this many times in Twitter Spaces, other lectures and whatnot. And I did a lot of that last year. And one of the YouTubers that has went out there and very transparently done it, used the idea of just taking 10 handles in a NASDAQ. Taking 10 handles and making his entire model that. And get out. And he took over $300,000 out of the proper companies. Matt Miller, or you may know him as Trades by Matt. So he did this, like he did it. Okay, you can say whatever you want to say about him. I don't have anything I could say bad about him. I think he runs a good community. I think what he does is, yeah, everybody should act. Stays in his lane, doesn't bother anybody else, just does it. And he doesn't always make money, but he's the only one I saw take $300,000 out of the prop firm, except for my student that just smashed it with almost $2 million. I don't think he'll call himself my student, but that's another discussion for another day. But the idea is that you have to have some kind of early exit strategy that you can live with, but you're going to hit 90+% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean you have a 90% strike rate and you don't lose, but just 10% of the time. It just means 90% of the trades that you enter, you're going to execute on this basis, meaning that you can see the trade going further, and you're going to wrestle with this in the beginning. It's going to feel like, why do this? I'm going to tell you why do this. You have to have the comfort of knowing that what you're doing repeats a lot. $20,000 payouts every single week. I don't care how good you are. When you're first finding your rhythm in this, you might find your first $20,000 payout for profit withdrawal. But you're not going to be able to do that every single week. Not right away. And then you're going to be rushing to try to duplicate that or double it. What happens if I do 5 times that? Then I got a 6-figure payout or a 6-figure withdrawal, and I can be part of the $100,000 club. Everybody will find respect in me in that regard if I do that. What are you doing? You're not trading for money. You're not running a business. You're trying to get clout. You can make all the money in the world, all the money in the world that you'd ever need and want, if you take yourself away from those things initially. That doesn't mean you can't come back to it later on when you learn how to do these things consistently. But if everything you're trying to do is an image-based marketing thing, doesn't it make sense for you to be consistent? Doesn't it mean that you should have some kind of track record where you can show that what you're doing, that you're going to try to garner attention from, be signals or live streaming or whatever it is you're going to do? The surest, fastest way to get there is to look for low-hanging fruit objectives. I promise you this, okay? I promise you. You think that $250 isn't enough right now. It's not enough right now because you see my results, you see my students' results, you see other people out there getting their results, and they're getting paid with real money. And you're trying to measure up to that stuff. And you're thinking, wow, I'm going to have to do a whole lot more than that or people won't recognize you. That's bullshit. Because I have a great deal of respect for someone that can walk out there every single day and find the reoccurring pattern, not just throw the dice and I made $250. You're trying to do something different every day and just happen to get $250. Chasing momentum. That to me is absolutely skillless. That's no skill. That's tantamount to going to the casino or playing the lottery. You have no model. If it's moving, let's run after it and chase it. If your trading model is like a dog chasing cars, there's a lot of dogs that chase cars, but a lot of dogs don't live long doing that. And I think that someone that has a model that frames out the basis for finding that $250, that tends to repeat based on reoccurring phenomena, things that have a reoccurring basis, that this is what it does, at this time of day, I'm looking for this. Where should the market draw to? New week opening gaps or new day opening gaps? That is not ambiguous. That is not something that's complex, folks. That's very, very simple stuff. That's the easiest thing in the world. No moving averages required. No VWAP. Nothing. None of that stuff. No higher time frame, top-down analysis approach. None of that stuff's required. None of that is. How do you supercharge it? When you have a gap opening. So at 9:30, if we gapped higher than what we settled the previous day, what's the previous day on a Monday? Friday. We had that today too. So that's why I was confident to tell you in that tweet, I'm comfortable, and I like the idea of these week opening gaps clustered as a draw on liquidity. Where did the market go in your charts? Did it go parabolically higher today? Went right down into these areas here. And it still hasn't touched the consequent encroachment or midpoint. And that further validates what I'm teaching you and what I taught my sons, that they can see Dad do really amazing objectives, and it can go trade right to the tick high or just a few ticks away from the high of the day, of the session, of the morning price swing or the afternoon price swing. And that's a goal for them. But that's not I got to do it that way or it fails. Or if I can't do that, I'm a failure. Or there's no sense in worrying about doing it at all if I can't do it that way. Versus as their dad, as their mentor too, and as your mentor, I'm reminding you that if you find a way for yourself, just starting out, if you can find $200, $100, doesn't have to be these specific numbers, but you have to have something that you would say, okay, if I go out every day and I look for this very easy objective, whatever it is you're trying to take down, I say $250 because that's a really good living, in addition to having whatever your job is. I don't even care if you have a low income paying job right now. Most people by definition in America right now are working a low paid job because inflation's ravished everything. I feel the pinch when I go out and spend groceries. I don't like that I have to spend that much. I think it's a travesty. And I think about how everyone else is trying to do it, and I don't know how they're doing it. Like, I don't know how anybody else that doesn't have some measure of income, cash flow coming in, how can you all be making it? It's got to be hard. So by having some low threshold that frames your result on, this is what I believe I can find this every single day. Meaning you can get 10 handles in the NASDAQ, or 15 handles in the NASDAQ, or 20 handles in the NASDAQ, or 5 handles in the S&P, or 10 handles in the S&P every single day. It might require you to do 2 trades. Or if you trade with a 15-minute time frame, just 1 trade and get it easily using a 1 minute or 15-second chart